We'll call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, October 18th. The time is 2 p.m. On this beautiful fall day in Oregon. My first item on our agenda is a presentation from potential development of industrial park, business park, and I'm going to have Colliers come up and introduce themselves and give us a presentation here.
If I may, John Kruger with Colliers. I have a quick kind of PowerPoint presentation I'd love to kind of run through, really due to the proprietary nature of the specifications of a plant like this. I'll hand these to you. We can walk through it together, questions and answers as much as we want, but then I'll take these back at the end of the presentation if that's acceptable to you. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass these around. I think I've got more than we need here. Okay. All right. Mayor, City Council, and City staff, thank you very much for having me here today. John Kruger, Colliers Site Expansion Services. I specialize in helping clients, companies around North America help site their next location for mostly heavy infrastructure, factories, manufacturing locations, although I do work on corporate headquarters relocations and corporate expansion, distribution buildings, etc. But often I find myself on site when they have heavy infrastructure requirements similar to Project Sprint. We do have a new code name. I know you guys are familiar with everything else, and again, just because of the proprietary nature of and the competition globally, solar and green energy is becoming more and more competitive across the entire world. So we want to keep a lot of the project specs, specific to how much production capacity we're going to be able to have. Those are all things that could be detrimental and very useful to a competitor if they were to understand this particular company's long-term American goals for production capabilities. Yeah. Just like you all would with any competitor. So we appreciate you being flexible with us and allowing us to start saying Project Sprint instead of the company names. We really appreciate that. You have in front of you a presentation that I'm not one who loves to get through all my paper. I don't need to get to the end of a piece of paper. So if there's questions and we go different directions, we can fire away. I did want to just briefly introduce my partner, Brett Swango. Brett Swango is also with Colliers. Does a lot of focus on site analytics. So quantitatively defensible information in terms of making a site location. So it's kind of what he specializes in. And then we do have a representative from the company. Anne is here from the company. So if we have any sort of other questions that we need to know, but this is very important to the company. She flew up from San Francisco this morning to make sure she was here because this is a very important project for them. And they're very interested in a collaborative partnership with the community that they decide to locate their factory in. So.
Sure, and I know staff, particularly Mohammed's been working very hard on this project. Also, we have I just want to announce we have Melanie with Oregon here. Yes. All over she said. We have the PUD here. So I just want to let everybody know that too as well.
Absolutely, yeah, and we've been Colliers and our partner, our team. We do this a lot. We do national site selection in 363 days a year, much to my wife's chagrin. But you guys as a community have been very supportive. You have great staff. I can't say anything more about the collaboration the company has felt and Colliers acknowledges. These are very time-consuming, very exacting specifications that we need to make sure, the water and wastewater, power requirements. Your community has been very helpful in making sure that we got anything and everything we need in a timely manner. So I want to congratulate you on a really fantastic staff and putting a great community together.
Thanks.
With that, I'll dive into Project Sprint. I think you've seen some of these things about kind of the global nature of the company. They are across the world. So there's some information kind of about going public, and there's some of their global capacity numbers. And really, I do want to start a little bit kind of understanding solar panels. This may be stuff that most people already know, but I like to start with sort of what they're trying to accomplish globally. The supply chain for solar panel manufacturing starts with very similar products to semiconductors. So the little semiconductor chips that go on our phones and our cars that we weren't able to buy 3 years ago because they didn't have chips in them anymore. All that CHIPS Act shortage around semiconductors, solar cells are a semiconductor. They're a subset. They operate very similar to how chips would act here. It's just a little bit different on the cell panel. So it starts off with ingots and wafers. So those wafers then get turned into solar cells. Those are like, if you look at a solar panel and you can see there's like little squares that look like they're lined up. Sometimes they're monocrystalline, but they look like they're cells kind of lined up in a panel. That's step 2, is making those cells. Step 3 is lining a bunch of those cells up in the configuration for the size panel you're going to use. And this company does everything from residential rooftop to large scale utilities. So if you see, a PGE installation, side of the freeway, you see rolling hills of, kind of ground mounted systems, those big panels. They make everything from the ones that go on houses, rooftops to the ground mounted, utility scale size. And it's all comes from the same process steps. Wafers, ingots to wafers in one plant. Another plant is creating it itself. And in the third plant, they put the cells together with glass on the top of them in a frame, and you have a finished panel. Here in St. Helens, what we're trying to accomplish is the second and third steps. Eventually, the company, like many others, would probably like to have ingot and wafer production in the United States. Just because of it, that's normally being imported from around the world into the United States. That's part of what the CHIPS Act is trying to address. We don't have the ability to make a lot of that stuff in the United States. So the company is trying to put together step 2 and step 3, which is the solar cell manufacturing or the cell fab fabrication plant, and the third step being a modco, where you're actually making the modules, which are the solar panels themselves. So I just wanted to kind of go through here and we talk about kind of globalization for this company and the 3 steps that they do to make their final product. We're talking about doing the second and third steps here in St. Helens, which would be our desire. So talk a little bit about, kind of polysilicon and globalization. So there's a lot of capabilities in here. I did want to, the slide that has a lot of the pictures in it. And you saw this, I think, in a video previously, but if you didn't, and for, those that are kind of concerned when you start saying more than 1 million square feet of industrial manufacturing, I think many of our minds go to smokestacks, go to a lot of noise, maybe a lot of smell, maybe a lot of, manufacturing, and we think heavy manufacturing. And this, I want to be really clear. You can see pictures of their past buildings. Like this is a great example. These are really clean, really nice looking manufacturing buildings that don't look much different from a distribution building, except, you can see they have a little bit heavier infrastructure kind of going into the buildings, but, nothing vertical. We're not talking about, any kind of.
3 of the buildings looks like solar cells or solar panels on the roof.
You're gonna do it, right? Absolutely, absolutely. And that is something, of course, we would, I think, love to do, here. So, making sure that a lot of communities have permitting. Is it visible? Is it, can we see it? If it's on a rooftop, maybe it's not, but, we would probably put a considerable amount of our own panels on top of our roofs here. So excited to do that. Next page has, some of the, what's in Thailand. You can see it. These are, even in other parts of the world, we kind of always think about American development standards as maybe being, the best development standards, but you can see even in other parts of the world where they built this, they build it really clean. It's really nice looking. They're very proud about how nice these facilities look. So this would be, in conjunction with the community, a really nice set of manufacturing buildings to complete steps 2 and 3. There's one picture of the building that they have in the southern part of the United States that is their first step 3, which is that panel manufacturing, so final panel manufacturing. They already have a location in the southeastern part of the United States. And when we get that step 2, the cell fab part, we will be feeding into multiple locations around the United States with this cell fab. I think the next one I want to point out is sort of their cell technical advantage. So on this page that has a picture of one of their larger utility scale panels on there. So this is the final product out of the building that would be open to the public purchase would be the solar panels that you see on that side. Then it moves into a slide that talks about the investment plan in the United States and North America. We got this question a few weeks ago, sort of, why St. Helens, why now? And you can see that the manufacturing.
I'm like, why not say no?
Yeah, right.
Probably me that said why saying
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, why right now is probably a very important question for us to, maybe spend some time on. The US unparalleled demand compared to the rest of the world. The rest of the world doesn't use electricity quite as much as Americans use our electricity. So going renewable, and they also don't have the green energy requirements that a lot of our American states are moving towards. You have multiple states now, several states that have now said we are going to be as a state completely carbon free by 2035, 2040. California's is 2035. So you have these states that have these really big green energy goals. California is a great example. They got nuclear, they don't do natural gas, except for, kind of peak firing, but solar panels and wind are going to be the big replacements for all other types of fuel for energy production in a lot of the United States in the next 15 years. So the market size, you can see from, 2023 at 35 gigawatts, going to 2026 at 80 gigawatts. This slide right here kind of talks about the global, the American demand for solar panels. That is a massive growth in scale over the next 5 years. So companies are moving into the United States to help address that demand to help us meet our green energy goals, including Project Sprint. I did start with this ingot and wafering plant, although this is not something we are currently siting. So this next site right here, this is ingot and wafering. That's not what we're doing, but I did want to show this is their sort of baseline first step manufacturing plant that goes into the solar cell production, which will be importing from around the world into the United States for our cell plant. Some cool pictures of kind of how they make some of this. And then moving into the cell plant. So the rendering on this page here that has the actual rendering of what we are considering putting into St. Helens and the Western United States is a cell production plant. Because again, as I mentioned, that's that first second step in making the panels. But this is a great rendering of what this entire factory looks like. Very clean. You'll see the job counts over there. In total, between the cell fab and the actual PV panel manufacturing facility, we've got about almost 3,000 employees between those two factories. The cell production itself has about 1,500, 1,200 to 1,500 positions in the manufacturing of the cells themselves. And then you have the third step, which is making the panels. And you have another about 1,500 employees that actually make the panels in this large facility. This solar cell is almost 1 million square feet, what we're trying to build. And these are all ideal numbers again. We look at configuration of the site and it may end up being 800,000. We look at a site and may accommodate 1 million. So there's some flexibility in a lot of these numbers, but right now we're trying to site about 1 million square feet for the cell production and another 1.5 million square feet for the panel production. So between the two, we're looking at siting 2.5 million square feet of space, somewhere between 1 3/4 and 2.5 million square feet of space is what we're trying to build and fill with an Oregon workforce, which is exactly what we're trying to do. And St. Helens is in a perfect location for it, considering your proximity to a lot of higher density population areas, but still being in a very great community that we can really work with and make a partnership with. Any questions so far? I'm kind of fire hose. I do it quick.
No, well, I just see a total investment of just the production plant itself was 850 million.
Yeah, we're looking at a little over $1 billion of investment for the two plants, close to 1.5. So it is a the gross domestic product of some small countries. It's going to be spent in hopefully St. Helens. So that's what we like to do.
Well, yes, we'd love to. I mean, hopefully this all goes forward, and I think we got a great team so far. But our entire tax base is $1 billion. So
There you go.
There you go. Pretty big.
Timeline to production.
Yeah, so there's always a desire to move fast, and I think that, realistically, if we could get this done and have a production start at the facility. So not full ramp, not full blown production, but we would like to see production in this in 18 to 24 months. Which is fast. I mean, that's 18 to 24 months is usually the build out of a single building. So we're gonna have to move quick, which is why we like a very collaborative, partnership driven community, because if we went to some place where we just needed to turn in permits at the front desk and pray, it wouldn't work. Absolutely, we couldn't meet the timeframes. Realistically, is it going to be 18 months and we'll have people working in that factory and building? I think we have a lot of questions to ask and some partners to still bring to the table before we figure out exactly how long it's gonna take us to get the plan up and running. Yeah, but ideally, I think we have leadership that says, look, we've done it in other parts of the world very fast. And I have to unfortunately say, well, we can't do it quite that fast in the United States.
Yes.
Yeah. So moving from the cell, which you can see some cool pictures of kind of really clean, and the cell production plant is really semiconductors. Have you ever been inside a semiconductor plant? They're in clean suits, the environment is clean, pressurized production areas, fully air conditioned, fully air pressurized to minimize things like dust. You don't want to sell with a bunch of dust on the inside of it. So before you put that glass down, it can't be covered in dust. So they've a lot of climate control. So they're nice manufacturing spaces to work in. We've all been in manufacturing that's a little bit warmer and a little bit more uncomfortable. This is some pretty comfortable operating environments for manufacturing facilities. They're proud of their work environment as well. And on the next page, it talks about the module manufacturing plant. So that's where we get the extra capital investment and look at really the other 1,500 or so employees for the production of the solar panel itself.
Well, I think a point that would be helpful to people is to understand that also any of the this part of this plant, all the product will be 100% US made. Is that correct?
So we do have some raw material that will go to the cell plant that just isn't made in America. But no, yes, absolutely, yeah. The final plant here, cells come from America, the aluminum's gonna come from everything, as much as they can possibly source is going to be coming from America. That's the whole reason we look at this kind of American manufacturing, is to serve the American market with American product.
And possibly even locally somewhere in the county
Yes.
or other places close to us that are producing.
Absolutely, yeah, I mean, this will feed roofing companies, probably not direct from the factory, but there'll be resellers that'll have kind of the sales. But yes, it'll go to roofing and solar installers, western half of the United States for this plant.
The first year of production, how many employees you think we need?
So this will ramp up pretty quick. So this isn't a kind of a slow trickle to get to 1,500 employees. This is the lion's share of that in the first 12 months of operation in the plant, and the second piece of it really within 24 months of opening that plant. It really is probably easier to ask how fast can we find, screen, hire, train, and onboard 1,500 people, not how fast would we like them producing.
It's over 10% of our population.
Right, yes, right, and that's why we're kind of looking at a larger area. We like that you're in the commute shed. We have Portland, we have a lot of surrounding Portland kind of communities that for the wages that we're looking for, quality control, production, engineering, manufacturing engineering. So a lot of these are very well, and we'll probably come in the next few weeks to month with sort of a wage survey. So we're working with kind of the state partners to understand, hey, with these skill sets, what's the kind of median wage level, what's the 90th percentile wage level, and I hope you will be very happy with what the average wage is, because there are a lot of positions in that 1,500 on the plant here, and especially in the cell, that get paid very well because they're very technically advanced. You really need to have some training. This is not something where you just, pick up somebody and say, hey, can you drive a forklift and start working?
Real quick, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but what kind of skill set would your basic worker be looking at needing?
It would be nice if they had, some sort of semiconductor experience, but that's not, I've had many a client that said had a very specific skill set. We're looking in America and you're gonna have to have some, kind of cross training. I worked in a distribution center, great, you know how to, maybe you understand the material handling software that we use, maybe it's somebody who understands, how to, operate on the logistics side and will work maybe more in the warehouse. But the base manufacturing on the cell side, if they have some experience working around equipment, they'll be feeders and off takers is what the federal government calls that classification of person. It's got a 6-digit code and it's feeders and off takers. So somebody who is very diligent around looking about what's being fed as a raw material into the equipment, and then somebody who's taking that off in a manner where nothing gets broken after they come off the equipment and goes to the rest of the production line. So think of it as sort of an advanced distribution experience would be great. And then there's going to be a lot of really specific skill sets around engineering, quality control, manufacturing, process flow, all that kind of stuff. And the raw materials themselves that need to be handled appropriately so they're not destroyed in the production.
And you may not be able to answer this question either, but I'll ask it. What about like advancement opportunities? Like say somebody comes in ground floor, they're doing the computer or the whatever. Is that something that the company?
So I mean, if I may answer that from what normally happens in a large factory setting like this, not specifically to this particular company's kind of corporate HR policy.
Yeah.
Advancement is necessary. Right? They have to have that. Turnover when you have 1,500 to 2,000 people working in proximity is usually in the 10 to 15%. So they're always looking for somebody who has the experience to move into the next level to kind of keep their own internal pipeline. It's sort of their own lifeblood to their own production capabilities. So advancement, what we'll probably be doing, working with the governor's office and Business Oregon around some of the training programs is sort of how we kind of have an internal corporate policy that says we'd like to do that. But 90% of the time, the clients I've worked with in large scale manufacturing, you need to do that. You have such a big pipeline to turnover. I mean, if you look at 3,000 people at 10% of your turnover, I need 300 people every single year just to fill vacancies. So at some point in 10 years, you're talking about 3,000 that you've used to fill vacancies. You need to have some long-term strategies to get growth inside the factory.
I figured that was the case.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask.
Brand new PCC and OMIC, so I'm
Yeah.
sure there's opportunity for partnerships.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of these, one of the things that we found very productive, and we'll see if that's something that we can do with PCC is, utilizing workforce dollars, to get some of the equipment that's in there. So they have some of that specific equipment experience. So it's 90% of us, even if we worked in heavy manufacturing, haven't dealt with the semiconductor machinery. So those are not things that you find at normal training facilities, but you can use some of these training dollars to buy pieces of equipment that are the same and or very familiar industry standards and help train for something like that. And not only would that be beneficial to our company, it would be beneficial to anybody else that has even a similar type of a workforce requirement that would be able to kind of utilize that kind of training.
Our high school is really big on their trades too, so maybe there could be even some type of program that you could implement basic entry level of getting them ahead of the game if that's something they're interested in.
It's going to be crucial. The early stage infrastructure vetting is complicated, time consuming, and very critical to the success.
Yes.
But most critical is once that's done, if I don't have the people, if I don't continuously have the workforce that's got a good work ethic, that works hard, that doesn't turn over, I can't take 30% turnover. 30% turnover happens where you've run out of staff pretty darn quick within 45-minute commute. But that training and looking at every single possible way that they can partner with people, whether it's PCC, it's an OMEC, it's a high school program that has an internship or an internship program or an apprentice program, a shadow a project sprint executive for a day. I mean, there's a lot of different programs that are beneficial for the long term because that workforce is extremely important. There's only a couple more, if you'll bear with me, some cool pictures and kind of how modules are produced. And a lot of these are very, industry standards, but you can see kind of some of the workforce. You see a lot of people kind of operating, kind of heavy software. They're running, multiple pieces of equipment at the same time, making sure that the feeders and off takers are handling product and equipment well. But it's all in very clean environments, which is necessary for the raw materials and it makes for a much better environment to work in than say something that isn't quite as clean as this. And then on the last page, that has kind of open discussion. These are all things that are very important for our decision matrix. We have a top line go, no go, binary, like that it's not there, I can't move forward. So it's a no-go all the way through to some, kind of gray scaled. The more we can get, the better. So that's kind of our last open piece. We still have a lot of vetting on the utility infrastructure that we need to have get done, but I think you've put together the right team to help us get the answers. In the Business Oregon team that we've talked to today, I think has some great partners inside the government that'll help us, kind of answer some of the things like the air permitting questions, et cetera, that we would have. But it'll be a long process, but we're going to condense it as fast as we possibly can, and a good series of partners is required to do that.
Sure, and we
have it.
went forefront on the power issue in our area, knowing that we need help there. We need help, and it's a third party that is between PPE and BPA, because it's also going to be an upgrade of energy that's one of those things that at the League of Oregon City, I notified Wyden's people of and Senator Bonaducci. And and continue, it takes a collaboration, I guess, is what I'm seeing here on this last page is. And not only that, there's lots of opportunities for grants to meet the green energy bills and in our nation too. So why I say that would be why you'd be here too.
Yeah, exactly. I heard a really great segment online. Someone told me or on the radio last night. It was an interview with your governor, and I was thinking in my head about the project and how to cite that, and I think there's a lot of really good synergy between what she has said she has in her current administration, what she would like to achieve in the next couple of years, and what this factory and what this company brings to the community and to the state. I think we can help each other very much achieve our goals and be very successful.
Yes. Any other questions?
A lot to chew on.
Yeah.
I was thinking about it, and I know you guys will be back and we'll be talking some more, so. Have anything else?
I love the I always look at everything as opportunities.
Yeah.
Good. Just my way of looking at it.
Great.
Never a problem, only an opportunity.
There you go. Yeah.
So we have some opportunities here to and want to thank you for coming out and giving a really good presentation. Anything you'd like to add, John?
That's really an exciting, potentially transformative project that could bring a lot to our region, to our state. And our finances are out by the too.
Yeah, because I mean, and I gotta speak just a little bit on our history, we have the work group here. We had 4 wood industry mills here.
Paycheck City.
Okay, we have about 50,000 people. This is what it means to our area. We have about 50,000 people in our area with about 700 acres of industrial property. Part of the problem with that is the power issue that I spoke. Which what I found, other than Hermiston, is the largest industrial property kind of in all of Oregon. And so I've learned a lot through just this process too about our area. So that being said, we have those 4 mills that are all gone. They're completely gone. And never to return. I mean, we wanted to have Cascade Tissues who opened up a plant in Scappoose and had 2 machines here producing the paper, repurposing in Scappoose, just all of a sudden pulled the rug out from underneath everybody. And so it's big for our area.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my story as mayor and living here for the last 50 years. Well, that's how old I am. And it seems like this company is very eager and is proud proud of the product they put out. It's cutting edge too. I think we did speak a little bit on that either. With the way that it's manufactured, it loses less of its solar capabilities than any other. Right.
Efficiencies are very high, yeah.
So, yeah,
Well, thank you very much for the time. I really appreciate it. Please do consider Colliers and Project Sprint as collaborators in getting this done, partners. Anytime there's questions, concerns, anything that comes up, Mohammed and John have been really phenomenal as your representatives to us. But if there's anything anybody would like to know at any point in time, something they heard, something they have concern about, or an idea of how to be successful in getting this thing done, please don't hesitate to pick up the phone, call my cell phone 24/7 and say, hey, John, I've heard this thing. What's this mean? Or hey, I got this other thing. I was someplace and PCC said OMEC could do this, and we that would be great, and we'll put it in the mix.
I'd like to again thank Ann for choosing us, and thank Business Oregon, Melanie, and Paul Vogel, and I know Mike Sykes and Brandon have been instrumental in understanding the power in our area and our needs, even though it's just very complex and so we'll continue to work that as a team and move this thing forward.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you very much. Project Sprint. Thank you very much. If I may, thank you, and I apologize, I gotta recollect them.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that's my plug to the community. If you have questions about it, feel free to reach out to me and I will do my best to get answers for you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I do, yeah, John, Mohammed will have it, please, anytime.
All right.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh my gosh, I just about. Got up, I could have been really bad. I'm all for it.
Well, you're allowed.
Okay, well, in the essence of time, that's why I put them ahead of the work schedule and typically come to do the public comment first, but that was very important. We took time, so now I will open it up for visitor comments. This is a period and is an essential part of local government meetings. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. The city council will take all input into consideration, however, in observance of working meeting laws. Yes. This isn't a time for dialogue, but rather a time for us to listen to you, our city administrator and city recorder are taking notes of action if needed. Thank you for participating in your comments. Also, each person has to speak for their 3 minutes in person. If you have something scripted, you can pass it to the next person, but you are also able to submit written testimony if it's longer than 3 minutes. We do read them. So who'd like to speak? Come on up.
Go ahead, sir.
Please state your name for the record.
My name is Ron Trollis. The city determined that an epoxy paint job was going to be a satisfactory repair to correct a 16,000 gallon per day, 2 million gallon leaking reservoir. Kennedy Jenks was providing a plan A, which failed. So plan B was a plan that would require a geotextile mat, 2,500 stainless steel holes, and 2 coats of epoxy. This required drilling a blind hole to hold a socket for 4-inch bolts and washers. When the repair was completed, the reservoir was leaking 74,000 gallons per day. The city then repaired the reservoir's leaking drain line. I was giving pictures of the fractured drain line dated May 1st, 2017 with drawings of the repair. And I believe this repair was in 2017, not 2018. Using simple math with the city's numbers and the repaired reservoir drain line, there was a correction of the water loss. The city hired Bear Investigation and Consultants in 2017 to find the source of the reservoirs leaking 42,000 gallons per day. The city's fixing the drain line reduced the reservoirs leaking by 32,000 gallons per day. The pipe repair resulted in 32,000 gallons a day improvement to the water loss of June 23rd, 2016. Then the water loss was only 16,000. The improvement of 32,000 gallons is double the original loss of 16,000 gallons. The city neglected due diligence in testing and repairing of the drain line. The numbers prove that there wouldn't even have been a need for the 2 million gallon reservoir rehabilitation at this time. The rehabilitation construction resulted in a damaged reservoir. Someone is ignoring the facts. This proves that the city had earlier done their testing, there wouldn't be an empty, damaged reservoir. The city of St. Helens and Kennedy Jenks, they neglected and ignored investigating and searching for the source of the reservoirs leaking. The reservoir was never drained, and I never heard or saw anything that revealed testing prior to the W49 contract bidding. This was like deciding to overhaul your engine when your radiator hose was leaking. You continue.
Captain Mayor Joel, council members, staff. My name is Eric Smythe. I'm the Deputy Fire Chief of Columbia River Fire and Rescue. And I spoke with Mr. Walsh about coming up here and having a quick conversation with you guys. We have an open fire board of directors position. And as we move forward, especially with projects like the Sprint project you guys are looking at, the fire district and the city need to work hand in hand. And I came to beseech one of you potentially putting in for our fire board of director position, because I think having somebody that's on city council be a member of our fire board with to develop those relationships and to know the interest of what the department needs and also what the city needs from the fire department. And with projects of this size that potentially coming in, it will definitely have an impact to our fire and EMS services along with the police for the city as well. So I came here to ask you guys to please consider that. If you when you guys talk amongst yourselves, if someone would like to do it, it'd be fantastic. Please go to our website application. The board will be doing a review and then speak. I'm asking because as the biggest city inside our fire district and with the most amount of people, it would be awesome to have a member of the city council or a member of this group be a member that represents not only Columbia River Fire and Rescue, but also the city of St. Helens. And so I came down here and asked Mr. Walsh to be okay. And so I appreciate it. I'm at 43. If you guys got any questions for me, you can ask. But ultimately, we only meet one day a month. It's on Tuesday evenings. They're actually talking about moving up the meetings earlier because it's 7 o'clock at night. And we've been at meetings till 11:30, and those are a little long. So even the board's looking at moving the meetings up, but it's one time a month. And then maybe when we do budgets, we might have an extra meeting here or there for a budget committee meeting. So it's not a gigantic commitment on your guys' part, but I really do believe that it would be a benefit to both the fire district and the city of St. Helens as we both grow and need to grow. With the large complex over there on Gable Road, we're already anticipating over 1,000 calls a year to my crews. And we're a veteran community, you guys know that, and clearly that's why we're looking at potentially bringing in manufacturing jobs, which I think is fantastic. That the fire supports it. So with that means there's gonna be more people, means there's more calls, and so having that relationship and being able to work together to find solutions, I think would be fantastic. So that's what I came to ask you folks.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, so if one of us submits our name to that, then when are you choosing that?
It'll be probably the end of it'll probably be by the first week of November. They'll set a special meeting
So,
just to have somebody come and.
a special meeting for that?
Correct. We won't do it. The problem with the board meeting is obviously a board, just like your guys' city council meetings, right? You guys have things you need to do.
Yeah.
So for us, it would be easier for the board to do it as separate, just solely that's their job is to interview and find out. I would push that a member of the board would be from the council would be fantastic. I've already talked to several board members, and there's people from the public to put it into. But ultimately, in the relationship between our fire department, which is the largest in the county, running 65% of all the calls in the county, I think having a relationship with you guys, strengthening it would be great. So, thank you.
Is that a voting seat or?
It is a voting seat.
Okay, I just
It
want
is a
to
voting seat.
know what we're getting ourselves into.
It is a voting seat. And I believe, I'm sorry, real quick, there is a question was asked about, could you be a council member and be on a board of directors? I believe you'd have to talk to your council, but I believe legal counsel, I believe there is, because Mr. Heimmuller was a county commissioner And he was on the 911 board of directors, and he voted on the 911 board of directors, so I can't imagine the fire, it's still a fire district.
It was a separate district.
It is a separate
But abstain if it's like.
If it does something directly with the city, yes, ma'am, that's
Yep.
correct. So then,
Is it the same like Tuesday, like second Tuesday or?
it's the second Tuesday of every month.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, well, so you're out, but somebody else can be.
Well, I just want to applaud you on coming forward. Thank you guys for coming forward, and we've been talking about it, and I think it's about time that we start helping out and pulling our weight too. for you
Well,
guys. So,
And again, Madam President, with the chance of something like that sprint project and stuff coming in, that is gonna have a huge impact. Not because of the factory, but you're talking more people, which means more car accidents, and they're gonna have calls there. I worked near a place like Intel where there's still people get hurt there and we still have to go take care of it. So having that relationship and growing together would be the best for both the city and the fire district.
Yes,
Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate your time.
thank you. Who's next?
Well, that was about the worst idea I've heard in a long time from a department that's had a bunch of bad ideas. My name is Brady Heim. You don't need 2 elected positions, pretty simple. We have lots of people in this county. 1 elected position is enough for each person. I think there's lots of ways that you want to participate in the fire department. Maybe you people on the budget. You could have a set of a liaison position, that would be fine. But for you to serve as an elected council person and a position that's elected is absurd. And the fact that Henry Highmiller did it doesn't mean it's good, it means it's bad. That tells you about corruption in this county. Did not happen. But my main comment would be about staffing, which we're gonna talk about, and hopefully the police chief will be here to talk about. As you know, I've been long opposed to the police station. And we're gonna hear about that tonight more at the public hearing that you have. But more importantly, my concern is about staffing, and I don't think we're going to address it. And I think it needs to be addressed. I think our staff for the police are getting to critical levels. And I think that we need to stop the idea of building a police station this time and concentrate the resources of the $10 on hiring more cops. We are going to be, if we're not already, at a crisis for police, and we need police. And I don't see how a building that will be empty because we don't have enough police is going to help us. We need police. And it would be great if we can afford both. It'd be wonderful. We can't. The budget does not support both. So we have to make a choice like everybody else does. And to me, the choice is hire the police that we need. And you know, and that's great news. I mean, I'm very happy that maybe the solar, that's gonna really happen. And if it really happens, that will solve some problems, and then we can revisit those issues once we have the budgeting and we have the industry here to support a police station that we can afford to build. Right now, we can't.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Beekler, Heather Everly. We're part of the board of the Bay County Parade, and if you haven't heard, it's been on Facebook everywhere. We are not planning for a 2024 parade. Safety was a big issue this year. Our priority is safety, and we just don't feel we have support to do that. So we know it brings in a lot of people, a lot of revenue for the business owners and the city, but at this time, we're not gonna plan for 2024.
Yeah, so we wanted to come down and tell you guys, and then if you had any questions that you could hear it straight from us and not all this hearsay that's going around town.
Yes.
What was the primary safety concern? I think I know, but.
Well, we had 2 big concerns, one being the police department. They're not supportive in any way. They initially told us we would have 3 officers. They would help us close the boulevard. They would help us close the turn lanes on the highway. That didn't end up happening. We had 2 officers who showed up, who parked in staging and said, this is what we're doing. So we had to have private security go out and risk their lives out there instead of having a patrol car stop traffic. We reached out to Oregon State Police, asked them to help. They were on board to come and help us, and City of St. Helens said, no, we're not doing that. So every avenue that we went to try and get more officers here to control the crowd, to make it a safe event, was just kiboshed. And then CERT got mired down in parking. And so we didn't know they weren't there. So when we rolled the parade, we had no CERT closing streets. All we had was our private volunteers. And we had people push through the crowds, push up against our people that are waiting to get through the crowds. The charter buses for parking were two of the culprits that did it on 18th Street when the street was closed and they knew it was closed. And they just kept pushing through the crowd until people moved. And so it was really disturbing. And so we just don't feel like unless we have the support that we can make it safe.
You guys hire private security?
Yes, we had 9 security
Was that
guards.
part of the permit process?
Yes,
Okay, because that's what I thought it was, that it was a requirement for that size of a parade, right? So
Yes.
The private security. And I'm guessing, you know, you guys don't charge for the parade, so I'm guessing that's a huge cost that you expense. Have you thought about trying to get sponsors?
we do get sponsors.
And that didn't cover the cost of the private security?
The PACTAC volunteered, so there was no charge to us for PACTAC. But if we had the security team that we needed, we're probably talking $25,000-$30,000. And no, we don't have anybody in this community that's gonna give us that kind of money.
I think the most alarming thing I heard was that you had the state police set to come out and help.
Yes.
And our case officers or
Refused to allow it.
refused to allow it.
And we have the email confirmations back and forth.
When public safety is a big concern in state and county, both work for us as well.
Yes, Sheriff's
City.
Department was here. They volunteered. They were here. Columbia City was here.
The policy members were here.
We had a lot of outside forces who came to help us. Unfortunately, our city was not.
Who was your contact at the state police? You know?
Andy Hazenkamp. And yeah, we have correspondence between the Oregon State Police, our security person, and the city of St. Helens saying, this is what they're willing to offer. They can give us 5 or 6 OSP officers to be here to help on bicycles, being in the crowd.
Team, the MRT team.
Yeah, the MRT team. And then the city saying, well, we don't have the resources to do the paperwork that needs to be done. Our security team said, we'll do the paperwork for you, give it to you, you can review it, submit it. And they basically came back and said, no, we're not doing this. And they're just like, okay, we thought we were helping you.
Not over a review of paperwork, basically, is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
You haven't have an estimate on the crowd.
I don't,
Hard to tell with the parade.
it's so hard to tell. I mean, I've heard numbers of 15 to 20,000.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, I would agree with that, about that.
More than we've ever seen.
Yeah, more than the previous year. Yeah. It's definitely growing. I think it's an amazing event for our community, but
Let me ask you this, if you got more support, would you can reconsider?
we've actually talked about that.
We have to, it'd be a lot would have to happen for it to. Let's see.
Sure.
Because this isn't the only year. So last year was the same.
Yeah.
This year was worse, with the response that we've gotten from our local police. So it just keeps rolling in the wrong direction, right? We're not getting the help we're actually getting. Almost.
But I'm not hearing a complete no.
You're not hearing a complaint.
Okay, all right.
You know, we love this. I mean,
I can tell by your emotion in your voice. I just want you to know I see it and I feel it and I know that it's, you know, been a nurturing thing. So, and I think the whole community supports you guys in it too. And it's hard when we live in Halloween town, right? You know, like you can't stop outsiders from coming to local events. Like it's just not gonna it's not realistic. So how do we fix it, help it, or do we have to say goodbye to it?
Right.
Yeah.
If I may, I have a question. So I know we're in the permit process and we've met while you guys were sending us. Anything from Public Works we can do to help or improve?
You guys were awesome.
Part of, yeah, Public Works is fine. Part of the old permit process was that we took the permit to the fire department, to the police department. We got to have in-person conversations. The police department said that they didn't sign off on the permit, they didn't see the permit. So, I don't know if that's something we can go back to, or, but it is.
Yeah, we need to pull
I'd
them
like to
on
revisit,
that
because I know the
conversation.
city of Portland didn't use, and again, Public Works is very utilized in Portland for the Starlight Parade and the other parade. They actually use their street sweepers to dump trucks to block roads. And then they also have a system where when they're done, the street sweepers actually start leading the way and sweep the streets all the way out. Pick it all up. It's amazing how they do it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Would like to keep the door open.
Yes.
For any innovative solution that you can think of from at least Public Works standpoints to support further, please let us know and we can get back together on the drawing table and figure.
Yes, yes, and I know sir got infiltrated, anything we can do to help out with that too, I think that's, yeah, let's at least leave the door up.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you for coming out here today.
Thank you.
Okay, who else would like to speak?
Dylan Lee had a question for you. Wasn't gonna speak, but I wanted to follow up with her. Is the Halloween Town Parade a private event or a city event?
It is not ran by the city.
So it's a private event?
Yeah.
Okay, the St. Helens Police Department is not responsible to oversee or help in private events, so I just want to clarify that. They were in the parade. I attended the parade. I'm totally for the parade going away. I live on one of the streets where people come by all the time. It was out of hand. It was crazy. We tried to walk. That we actually had to stand in the street, tell people to slow down because there's little kids everywhere. It's dark. They weren't respectful of parking. I honestly don't know how the two officers that were in the vehicle, like, I'm glad they stayed in their vehicle, because I thought if something were to go wrong, this would go very, very wrong. There were so many people and they weren't listening. I appreciate Aspen Camp's private security team that came. They did a good job in that intersection that we were, but there's just no way, even with CERT, like, we need way more traffic control everywhere. Old Portland was backed up all day long trying to come in. It's way out of hand. It's too big for our city right now, I think. So that's my comments on that. I don't believe that the St. Helens Police Department was on the permit. I'm not sure why she was picking on them. But again, staffing issues. So if we'd like to see more police at events, you know, we gotta get them staffed. So that's all I have to say.
We got somebody online, Jeff? Okay.
Ecocats. Some comments. The reason I'm standing over here, sitting there with the speaker above you, people cannot hear or hear on a recording. 3 points I'd like to bring up today. First, I delivered some thoughts and facts on September 6th work session and gave them to the recorder in writing. They were published. What was published in the meeting's agenda are not the words I use, nor the words I presented. The statement that proposes to be mine presentation is a lie. In locating business, many items are considered. How well are the schools backed? How are the libraries funded? How good is the home security and the police funding? Our parks and local environment? Local newspaper outlets up to date? Does the town show willingness to have new businesses locate? How well does the local government handle infrastructure? How transparent to the community are pro-business? How professional is the governing body? How many recreational opportunities exist in the area? How does St. Helens measure up to these requirements? The city of St. Helens government would not waive building permits for the cost of the new school building. Classrooms were eliminated. Local library has a reduced staff, and the pay scale for the library is the lowest of any department. Local crime picture, because of drugs and major increase in the homeless are nearby large cities, is becoming a picture of unforeseen problems because of lack of realistic planning. Local historic distrust of the police can be eliminated. A continuous improvement in facilities, staffing, awareness, policies, new responsibility. Police. The parks have shown an inappropriate favoritism to some sports, reduction in some facilities because of vandalism and homelessness. The local news outlets have become a spokesman for the city government without the ability to report many sides of events of opinions. St. Helens does not have a specific office to recruit new business. It has hired specialty, nor has it hired specialty professionals to encourage businesses to locate here. St. Helens is an old town by Oregon standards and traditionally not documented facilities. It has had to be told to dump its sewage in the river, not to dump its sewage in the river, or enlarge the carrying ability of the sewer system, even large water leaks in the drinking water and firefighting system. The opening statement of authority in St. Helens is, "I was born and raised here." This brief statement describes how, if you're not from around here, you do not have real knowledge. You do not belong here and you do not need to know how the local government works. This statement indicates that solutions presented by people not in the inner circle will not be used or even considered. The use of outside professionals to solve problems, no plans, or the town are not welcome. The river, the nearness of the ocean, and many forested areas with abundant wildlife makes this area one of the most attractive areas in the United States. The local weather has seasons that are not extreme and most livable, and also a good place for the homeless. One thing the group should know, I hand this to Kathy, and I also send a copy of this to City Council. So when my words are not correctly represented in the agenda, the council is aware of what they were and have turned away to not make sure they're correct.
Any others like to speak? I think we go to
Steve Toskey.
go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. I do echo somewhat of Steve Topaz's statement at the end there about ability to receive and take into account viewpoints from people that come from the outside of here. People have a lot of life experience and education, bring a lot to the table. And I definitely believe that our council needs to find paths to make sure that those views are heard. And I think it will improve our ability to move forward. I've got a couple of things to say about the opportunity regarding the chip plant. They said one of their things is wafer production, which is a lot of water. I know that there's been some thought that we have water rights. Water law is very, very specific and an extremely precise area of the law. Definitely need to be hiring attorneys versed in water law that if we're going to be providing water to this facility. The path that the city council took on the pot farm sale turned out to be a disaster. Or the legal analysis and how we went forward with that resulted in the judge saying we didn't convey the property. So I think we need to definitely be dealing with attorneys that are experienced in negotiating contracts with this sort of a company and to definitely get our game in the right position to be able to successfully complete a deal like this because it can be challenged from many different sources. Regarding the parade, this is something, as somebody who's been to large crowd events, I'm talking about massive 60, 100,000 crowd events. Definitely need to start with event planning on a professional level, anticipating a crowd levels and expenditures of professionals to talk about traffic direction and traffic movement. It'd be totally insufficient if we go forward and think that we can solve these problems without bringing in outside consultants. And I agree with the potential dangers of crowd control. They should be addressed professionally, and we should move forward with planning in an early process to make sure that if we do hold this event, as our events gets bigger, people will be safe. Last, on the issue of the police funding, I went over the budget. First of all, our police are not asking for more money. They're asking for more people. And as an employer for years, when your staff comes to you and says, we're stretched thin, we can't do more, you have a choice. You could say, we're going to bring on more staff, or we're going to say that we can't bring it on. I'm sorry, this is the best we can do. Or we can say, we need more out of you. You're underperforming. There's been no statement to the police that they're underperforming. As a matter of fact, we said to the police, they're doing a good job. And what we said to the police is that we're going to increase the staffing. And when you make promises to your staff that you're going to increase staffing, you need to find a way to do it, but you shouldn't make promises to your staff that you're going to increase staffing and then don't do it. What you end up with is dissatisfied people. And people who are getting stretched. And that's what we're dealing with here. And so I'm encouraging the city council to get a realistic handle on how it is that we're proposing to pay for the $2 million increase in funding for the police so we can staff the police. And in looking at our budget and going through the budget, it looks like some of the revenue sources that we've been anticipating may not have materialized. Right now, according to public access, the amount of revenues that we've actually had come in are simply hypothetical numbers. There are no real numbers that we are using to work with over the last 2 years. We're still using hypothetical numbers from 22-23 budget. So if it's a matter of going to the people and saying we're going to need to raise money from you to guarantee funding of our police, maybe that's what we should do. But these are your decisions. But definitely, as a citizen looking at this problem, we've made promises to our employees to increase staffing, to reduce their workloads and their quality of life.
I'm gonna need you to wrap it up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I've made my points. Appreciate it.
Okay, anybody else on Zoom? None? Anybody raise their hand? Okay, so please state your name for the record.
My name is Peter Lane. Once again, I'm a candidate for Workhouse District 31. I was very excited to listen to the briefing by the guy who wants to basically open up a solar plant. We've been talking in the last couple meetings about how how are we going to attract industry, and not only industry, but industries that's going to create not only jobs, but careers. Careers for our #1 export right now, which is our young people, which are leaving because there's no opportunity here. I think there's a lot to do with, the appeal for the area in that nature because of what's happening in, the proposed expansions in North Plains, and a lot of money's in superconductors right now. We live in the Silicon Forest, as they like to say. Most Republicans end up finding themselves at odds when there's some sort of competition between hydrocarbons and solar, whereas I look at things with a little bit tighter of a tinfoil hat, and I view things that are good for self-sustainability, people being able to live off grid, and solar is a fantastic option. So I'm pro power, I'm pro energy. I think that the ability for people to maintain themselves without having to strain our grid. Look at all the things we're plugging in nowadays with more electric cars coming in the future. I'm excited to hear about people wanting to bring this type of growth to our area. And I think paralleling something that was brought up in series earlier by Mr. Rutowski is the health of our city when it comes to law enforcement is going to hinge on how attractive this area is to these type of businesses that want to open up 1 billion square foot facilities, employing up to 3,000 individuals. It's a lot more than window treatment, but it's definitely something that's assured that we could have had that guy come here at a better time because yeah, Halloween town going on. He sees this vibrant community that's just lost some industry. I'm excited to be a win-win proposition, and I think that's why it's important for us to invest in the future of St. Helens, not only by making sure we're adequately covered with our police and emergency services, but as I've said before, I'm a really big fan of anybody visiting St. Helens, seeing that brand new, beautiful police station. And knowing that this is a community that prioritizes the safety of everybody here, whether you're coming here to hopefully get a job at a new solar plant or to work in the mills or just come and visit because we have some really interesting stuff. So that's all I wanted to say. I was very glad to see you got receptive attitudes towards what, you know, the opportunity. So, thank you very much.
I'm very well receptive to any business that wants to come in, but that was a pretty big industry. All right, last chance. Nobody there? Okay, let's go on to our next item, which is update from police staffing, and I'm gonna have Chief Greenway, and I think Lieutenant Hogue is on
Lieutenant Hope is in a meeting right now,
there. Okay,
actually trying to iron out some issues, so it's just me on the hot seat.
okay.
So, good afternoon, council. First, let me address the Halloween parade. That's the big elephant in the room. And set the record straight with facts, because as you know, 5.5 years, I am big on data and big on facts. So the St. Helens Police Department was not part of the permitting for the parade. We didn't know the parade was happening. Assumed it, you know, because it happens every year, but we were not invited to any of the permit meetings at nobody's fault. And what occurred when the permit did land in the police department's lap, it had stated Columbia County Sheriff's, Oregon State Police, and private security would handle this private event. Whoever the young lady who spoke up here, she's 100% right. This is a private event. This is not a city sanctioned event. But we also understand that this is a large event. This year, the crowd was estimated over 20,000. Last year, to put in perspective, we estimated 13,000. We had challenges last year. So on the permit itself, when it was signed, St. Helens Police wasn't on there. So knowing what was going to take place, probably a large crowd, I personally reached out to Lieutenant Andy Hazenkamp, who's the Oregon State Police Lieutenant in Clatsop County, Astoria. I have a good relationship with him. Andy, we're going to need some help. Okay, can you help us? Yeah, what do you need? Well, we don't know because we don't know about the permit part of it, but we don't know what we're looking at. We don't know anything. So what had occurred was Lieutenant Hogue started talking to him, and what eventually happened, Oregon State Police, Andy said, I offered out there, I can't get any troopers that want to work the overtime. But they talk about, we could have got 15 more officers from Oregon State Police. I don't want to say we could have, but we're not in charge of the permit. The Oregon State Police mandates that an agency who's requesting the mobile response team, a bunch of troopers on bicycles to assist, needs to be in charge and have an operations plan. First and foremost, the law enforcement doesn't share operation plans outside the law enforcement community. That'd be like giving where the keys to the bank is. You know, we don't do that. So what occurred was almost a perfect storm. We have some work to do as a city about improving the permit process and looping in the police, you know, so we're aware and we can start planning for these events. But you're going to see officers here, okay? And for people to be here disingenuous, say the St. Helens Police didn't help. I had 2 officers working swing shift. That's all I can guarantee to anybody. 4 officers, again, sacrificed their family time and came in to work. In fact, one of the officers was stuck in that god-awful traffic for 45 minutes to the point where our own officers almost went to pick her up so she can get here. So for people to come up here and slander the St. Helens Police Department is disingenuous and unacceptable because we have a good track record and we were out there. My question is, why wasn't any of the other people on the permit creating an operations plan and being in charge? Again, because of reasons outside of our control, our collective bargaining, I cannot mandate our officers to work overtime. And we're going to talk about that in the staffing. We just don't have that authority. I can't say you're working this parade because they say, no, I'm not working the parade. Now, taking in account, I was happy to get 6. Very quickly, they were overwhelmed by that crowd. Very quickly. 20,000 people plus in this town. So the instructions, yes, there's a chain of emails and I'm happy to share with you. In fact, Sergeant Eustace, who worked that event, actually did an after action email that Mr. Walsh and Mohammed has. Right. And I can tell you that was very concerning about what we allowed to go on in this town without having the proper resources. So some of you might not know this, some of you do, and I don't want to toot my own horn. 25 years, Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department. For 4 of those years, I ran the events planning section. I was in charge of planning and executing large-scale events, to include New Year's Eve, where we had over 350,000 visitors, Electric Daisy Carnival, NASCAR races, 1 October, the worst shooting in America's history. I know what I am doing, folks, all right? And when I'm telling you this, please heed the warning. We are woefully understaffed to have these events. We have a policy in Las Vegas that if you want to have an event and it has 500 attendees, you need a minimum of 2 officers. Not 2 officers and a security, 2 officers. If you add alcohol to that event, you need 4 officers. So this event would have taken 40 police officers to properly vet and handle.
Sure,
We don't have.
but we're not Vegas, okay?
I understand.
Casinos, now, that's unfair, because Vegas probably has a huge.
Well, I understand, and I'm a little bit heated because I take this personally, and I should take it personally because you're attacking our community.
And I get.
Not you, but
So, but I want to be in all fairness, I just want to state that, and also that, I heard you say that we could do better.
100%. Yeah.
Okay. So,
But I also want the record to go, and our citizens who are watching know that this is not on the shoulders of St. Helens Police Department. And I'm thankful to the 4 officers who sacrificed their family time to come in, and they didn't even get to the parade. They were stuck on other,
I sent officers out that day.
Okay. And so to be disingenuous and come up here and say, we didn't communicate, we didn't do this, that absolutely is false.
So we are a community as a whole, very small community here.
Correct.
And we, try to work together, and I think there's stuff we could do better. Okay?
Absolutely agree on that, but we also,
Within our city, we also have a bunch of agencies that we oversee as counselors. And that we have to be accountable and responsible for each and everyone's budget. And what that looks like and the staffing needs to serve all citizens in all departments, from public works to library to rec program, which benefits the little youth who's trying to come up and learn baseball and wants to be.
completely agree with you,
Wants to
Mayor.
be the next Justin Herbert in football or something, so. Yeah.
I understand, Mayor. I'm a little amped up because again, we're getting attacked and it's unwarranted. Okay.
What
What is the team is what I want to make sure that we collectively continue to stay a team, because we have a really good team here.
Absolutely.
Yes.
What I heard was that there's some issues with the planning and the permit. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the chief does sign that permit in the end, right?
No,
So you don't.
I
sign
did not see,
the Permit.
I did not, and that's one of the loopholes we have to address. And it's already on the agenda for our next management meeting. I did not see or approve this parade. We were not part of the planning for the parade.
Okay.
Yet once the permit's approved, then people say, oh, by the way, the police, you have to handle this.
So that sounds like something that we need to work on, is
Right.
the beginning process of. And I know like Kiwanis parade is not comparable to this parade.
Correct.
It's very different, so it is a different scale of a parade, and so maybe there should be some different process. for-
One of my big things is always, and I spoke when the Congress was here presenting for the industrial, which would be big words. Wouldn't be having this discussion if we had that operating today. That's just the bottom line in the fire department too. So we had a problem, we understand that, but I don't see problems as problems, I see problems as opportunities. So we have an opportunity to not live in the past and try to see, is this gonna be even doable for next year, and start talking about it real early.
Correct.
Okay, so that's what I see, okay, so let's.
We'll move on that. I
Yes,
agree.
I'm trying to say
So
what-
I didn't set the tone, but I use the resources that we can. So we're gonna talk about staffing.
Yeah, and part of that, I just want, yes, a little bit is just because there's misconception out there, and again, Mr. Toski, even in his public testimony, said that you have $2 million that's coming to you, and I don't get where that's coming from. And it was spoke of $1.5 million out there. And also, it's been talked about that we were gonna defund the police, and I asked Kathy, because I want to start with this. I have worked with Gloria because I came in 2016 and we are not even remotely close to defund the police, okay? Just so you know, we support each and every one of you and we heard the wives say that you're working your off, okay? And we know that to be true. I just want to put these numbers out there, and if anybody out there in the public would like to have them, they can email me and I'll forward them to you. But we started out with basically a $2.5 million in 2016 for 16 officers running 24-hour service. We are now up to 21 officers and we are paying $5.85 million, okay? In total. Our personnel staffing went from 2.4 to 4.8. Okay, more than double. We have an increase since 2016 to date, and this is actual budget. These are actual numbers. 3,433,000 that we have increased, 141%. So anybody who's out there thinking we're defunding the police, the numbers don't lie. Okay. The reason I asked Chief to be here is because we obviously have some staffing issue, and I talked to him prior to this, and I told him I was going to talk about this. We understand there's some hurt officers, there's people in the academy, there's still an open position. We're trying to just figure out scheduling and how to look at maybe within the budget and crunch some numbers, maybe even find, in my opinion, find enough officers. And I think just to open up the door and say, we hear the wives of the officers that have been coming, and that we definitely care about our police department. There's no doubt about it. So I wanted to start with these numbers because it's a fact. Numbers don't lie. That's what was budgeted. Those are years past. This is where we're at today. We've never ever defunded our police department in our area, ever. Matter of fact, we have a public hearing, I think, on a brand new police department later because the old one pretty shitty, excuse my language. Yes, police station, not a department. So I just wanted to start there, and then we can dive into you probably have some numbers that we talked about, what we'd be talking about, so.
So one thing I think the entire community and citizen comment and council, we all agree we need more police. We're short staffed, so I'm appreciative of everybody who gets up here and speaks and voices their opinion, whether you like to hear it or not. Be prepared because I will respond, with what I know. So currently, we run, our shift is 3 shifts, 10-hour shifts, start on day shift, swing shift, graveyard. A lot of this staffing is driven by our collective bargaining agreement. And what that is for our citizens watching is a contract between the police union and the city outlining what we can and can't do. Okay, and the city and the police union have agreed upon certain things. One of the agreements is that we will always have a minimum of 2 officers on duty. The reason that is the case is for officer safety. Plus, we have policies that require a minimum of 2 officers to respond to a call, violent call. You need 2 officers, so we don't have an officer respond by themselves. So we're driven by that. We're also driven by our the agreement of the shifts that we can and cannot assign our officers to work. There's 3 shifts we get to pick from: a 5 8-hour shift, a 4 10-hour shift, or a 12-hour shift. That's it. Anything else we try to do has to be negotiated between the city and the union. So what we've learned is when I first arrived here 5.5 years ago, we were on a 5/8 schedule, and it was very problematic. And what I mean by that is that officers would get on for a shift, they'd work their 8 hours, and they'd go home. There was no time for those officers to complete the many duties that they have to. 1 being reg reports, 2 being download body camera footage, 3 being impound and process evidence, 4 being search warrant service or return, and then 5th one being proactive policing. I am big on proactive policing. Policing with a plan. Don't leave the police station, drive around aimlessly. Have a plan. Go attack our hotspots. Let's reduce crime. Let's be in the community. So that 8-hour shift wasn't working, to the point where we identified we had a couple officers who were way behind in reports, in excess of 40, because they would get off and go home. They weren't afforded that coverage, which the new shift does. So we transitioned to 4 officers working 4 days a week, 10 hours. What that affords your police officers to do is two officers come on, they'll work a 10-hour shift. And 2 hours before they're supposed to get off, the next shift would start. So we have 4 officers on at the same time for 2 hours. What that does, it allows the 2 officers been working to do all those duties, okay? As we have progressed in our policing, the police reform, we have been given a lot more mandatory training. And on top of the other training that the officers have to complete to be able to deliver the product that you speak of almost weekly or bi-weekly at your council, monthly, excuse me, when you say, look at what the police do. Right, there's a reason, because we train them, the expectations is excellence and many other things. So what has occurred is, to the mayor's point, is we have 21 sworn officers right now. We're allotted 22, authorized 22, but we have 21 we're holding on vacant. Out of that 21 officers, we need 14 police officers to maintain 24/7 on-duty patrol. 14, that's our magical number. How we get there, we get there. But because we have 3 officers in training, then you throw the 1 officer who is not in training or is not filled. So now we're down 4, okay, that we don't fill. Then you throw in the injuries and surgeries and everything. And what we're doing is that we are operating right now around average with between, I would say, 11 and 12 officers filling in the 14 slots. So you see an abundance of overtime coming through, because these officers are working just mass amounts of overtime. And I can speak to this, and I'll tell you, and I'll share this, the police union president has concerns about the amount and the volume of overtime these officers are working, and I share that same concern. So for instance, we have 1 officer who worked 28 days in a row without a day off. We have 1 officer who continuously works 50 to 60 hours overtime in a 2-week period. The reason they do that is because we need to continue staffing around the clock. But at what cost? And the concern the police chief has is that we are putting our officers in a position of exhaustion, to where I can talk right now. We had an accident in our police lot a couple weeks ago. An officer was so tired, hit another officer's car with his own car. Okay. Things like that. What we cannot do is we cannot keep pushing our officers to the point where they make bad decisions. Remember, these officers are one of the only few people in the world that have the ability to take a human life legally. Okay, I know that's pretty dramatic to say, but it's the same thing as if you had brain surgery, you want your neurosurgeon to have the most rest and be the most capable and ready to go. It's no different from our police officers or a pilot. We don't want to put a product out there that's overworked. So we're actually, that's what Lieutenant Toga, he's researching. Hey, are we kind of okay on this? So we have to come to a conclusion. And so Mr. Walsh and I have been talking, we're looking at the staffing models so we can continue to deliver a 24-hour police response. That's what our community demands. Okay, a 24-hour police response. We can't get away from that. All right. And so there is a sense of urgency, because the second big elephant in the room before the Halloween parade or after is the retirements. Unfortunately, today I am sitting here in front of council to tell you I had another officer come up to me and tell me he's retiring. So it caught me by surprise. He's done. Okay, I guess I gave it away. It's a male, but we only have 1 female officer, so she's new. But what my whole point on this is, we are our train is on the track that we have these retirements coming up. So now I know of 4 guaranteed retirements in the next 9 months. Okay. And what that means for our staffing is that we definitely have to sit down and get another model, because we cannot sustain this pace. We just can't. But the message I would have for our residents is that our level of service, we might be delayed on some calls, like maybe we can't normally respond to a barking dog call, or your cans got stolen, and there might be a delay. But rest assured, our officers are committed to excellence, and they will still maintain the same level of service that our citizens have come to expect. And literally, if you ever heard that we are a victim of our own success, we absolutely are, the police department. And the reason is that our citizens demand excellence, and our officers give it to them. And so if we were like any other agency, I'm not disparaging local, maybe we don't. Maybe we say, sorry, we just don't have the staffing. But our officers, again, the majority of our officers are residents of this city. Their kids go to our schools. They shop at our stores, so they care. And that's the takeaway. So, Council President.
All right, I mean to jump on there, but I wanted to go back to what you said earlier, which is something that I've been puzzled by, because I'm not understanding the facts here, so I'm glad that we're all sitting together to get this out in front of everyone. So you said that we're holding one vacant position, we're 21 now and allotted 22. Why are we holding one position?
That's the position we didn't fill at the last budget committee.
Why isn't it being filled?
So, but we have one beyond that, that's not filled too.
No, we only have one authorized vacancy that's not filled.
The 22, no, wait, we have 21 right there up there on the screen.
And he's saying we're allotted 22 though, so we have one position that's not being
And
filled.
then it goes back to 21, because that was a budgetary, when we had the budget meeting, and we talked about that. That it wasn't in the budget, and then we adjusted the budget, if we got a budget member out there, Caitlin said yes. About the 12.6 million for the police station is currently at 13, so basically that 1.5 years breaks even on the current station. In working with administration, our department, you want to see that too, which is finances too.
Well, what I was told by
currently where we're at.
our department was that we were not holding any position, that
We're
we're
not.
not hiring any positions for the police. So what is it?
There's still one position open.
Correct.
That'd be correct on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's one position open. We didn't fill because of the budget.
Get us ready to throw this. I'm like, do we have a position or not open?
We do.
Are we actively trying to fill it?
21. There's one open, there's 3 in the academy, there's 4 positions that are not filled. My question would be this, why don't we continue to, I'm sure it is, we're hiring?
No.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Why aren't we hiring?
We don't have the money to hire. We were told that we're not filling that, so
The one position.
for that vacant.
Yeah.
Right.
No, that is in the budget.
That's
Yeah,
vacant
that's
in the budget. John?
Yeah, John,
Are we
because.
all-
You're
you're
testing my memory here, but the budget committee, the council ultimately approved the budget. With using $500,000 of reserve money to balance and lowering its ending fund reserve from 20% down to 15%, which is pretty dramatic,
Yeah. 700,000.
predicated on not filling a police position and several other positions.
One of 2 that we were. in the
And
budget.
I don't know if that, because there's been so many people coming.
So right now we have 21 officers, 21 sworn officers. We're authorized 22. And the reason we're not, because we opted to leave it vacant. Well, excuse me, I didn't have to leave it vacant, but so that's where we're at. And you know, without the funding, we can't fill that. So.
So, yeah, is that the truth? I mean, is that where we're at?
That's where we're.
Okay, so,
That's where I.
because we keep hearing that there's an open position.
I know that's
That's
I'm
not- that's
frustrated
not-
by it
that
because
is
I
not
don't even
filled.
know what's
That
happening.
is, I think this needs a discussion with our city finance director. Is that position already there without the unfilled? This isn't the one we were talking about in budget committee. I wanna know on that, so.
I can tell you, Mayor, that we have 21 and we have a vacant position. We're authorized 22, but we
And
didn't.
again, so I'm gonna come back to this though too.
Right.
Okay, because I am all about being fiscally responsible, and I did speak on this when 2.5 million got us 16 officers, and I get. 2.5 got us 16 officers. Back in, and actually it was 2.2 for personnel. Right up here. And we're at 4.8. This, and we have 5 more officers. And then I look at the materials and I look at everything else that has gone up quite a bit. I want to look within that budget, whether it be, and we talked about this, whether it be about hours and overtime. Whether it be about materials, looking at cost of everything. And trying to find within that budget, that 22nd position. Itself, that's already there, and I think it's there, there's $5.85 million in the entire budget. If we can't look at maybe potentially staffing. At one point in time, and I'm not trying to be like that guy. But I have lived here all my life. We did that go code enforcement, the chief did throw on a uniform and go write tickets, I seen Salee and Moss both write tickets. I just did, and I'm not trying to be that guy, but
There's a tram out there, I'll write a ticket on right
Well,
now.
I just have just have our officers' wives here. Saying that they're overworked and that's detrimental. And I don't think, I mean, that comes back to, you're hearing it, but we didn't know, and you're the department head.
Right, understandable. So we have made some adjustments already. We are reducing our detectives down to one. But it's
Very unfortunate, though, that's not.
100%, Council President,
I wanna hear about
100%, because these detectives work an enormous amount of cases. And so, but we have no choice because we have to prioritize. When somebody picks up the phone and calls 911, we need to be there. Okay, we are also we already transferred an administrative sergeant back to patrol to fill in the gaps. But my whole point is that still doesn't get us there. What the big conversation piece we're missing is that the hiring process. And I've said this before, it takes, if you were to say, fill that position today, tomorrow we start averaging from the time we advertise to the time that individual is out of training and ready to go as a single officer unit in our city is over a year, just over a year. If they make it. 1 out of 3 will not make it. They just, for whatever reason. So the whole thought process should be, okay, we can honestly, okay, we can, work, we can move people around, we can move the chess pieces, but we cannot avoid this retirement exodus that's gonna hit us.
Let's go with a lateral bonus.
We can't do that. We had that and then the governor outlawed it.
Never outlawed it.
Yes.
Okay, well, you just start being friendlier to officers and other agencies, gentlemen. And
People Pay Act.
Right, we have, and so
But we have a lot to offer out this way.
Well, that's our conversation tonight, because I'm gonna touch on that. And just so everybody knows, we actually welcome laterals, but please know, it's a buyer's market. Really, when you say we have a lot to offer, we do, but
Trust me, we just came back from the League of Oregon Cities. 4 of us did. Russ wasn't able to go because he just
Right.
came aboard. But we are not alone. And
I agree.
You're going through, because I also want to talk about that a little bit, okay? That sometimes you don't fill a position just because the hires were not there.
Correct.
And not everybody makes it to the academy too. And it's unfortunate, but that's where we're at. And we also out of city council and chief control, if anybody getting injured.
Yeah.
I mean, we gotta talk about, that's really the big elephant. in the room.
We have 2 injuries,
Because
right?
we're not the only city, but the
Correct.
entire state, if you call any police chief and ask him, what's your number 1 problem? He's gonna say, we need an officer, more than likely.
Right. So just to kind of, if I can just expound on that. When I first arrived here, applications, a little bit over 200. The last time we applied, we had 20. Now, there's reasons in my belief, and maybe I'm biased, but the media doesn't do us any favors. Our own profession doesn't do us any favors with what happened in Minneapolis and Memphis. We're our own worst enemy. But what's telling, just so everybody knows, yesterday Lieutenant Ho was at the St. Helens High School. It was career day. And he, so he shows up and, hey, how about we get involved in law enforcement? This is a great career, great benefits. And he competed with Nike and Les Schwab and, military and all the people there. And he had 5 out of 125 students, 5 students come up, and all 5 were only interested in CSI. The television show that absolutely sensationalizes and it's not true. Right? We just don't solve crimes, right? So my whole point in telling you that is twofold. One, I would focus on retaining what we have. We can't control the retirements, but retain what we had. And it plays into tonight's meeting, and I'll touch on this, so I don't want to, go into the police station. That's a factor, okay? When it's a buyer's market, Mayor, and you say that everybody, what do we have to offer? Our pay is comparable to every other metro city. We're not high, we're not low. We're right there with Hillsborough, Beaverton. But our police station, they don't want to work there. Our schedule is another thing. And the really thing that hampers us is the housing out here. There's no available housing. There's no apartments. You see it. As soon as something comes available, it's gone. Well, so we have other things Mr. Walsh and I have talked about, other recruiting tools, ideas to kind of bring us up to things. So focus on retaining what we have. I'll talk about this tonight, and then recruiting. But to your point, I would much rather go with a vacancy 10 times out of 10 than hire the wrong individual, because that will cost us more in the long run, and our reputation as city leaders And, it's just the worst thing to do is hire the wrong person. So we have not lowered our standards. Trust me, I'm reminded every day by Lieutenant Hogue, I'm not lowering the standards, chief, and I don't ask him to. So it's not easy to get hired, and there's a battery of tests. And, and then when you decide, then you go through this rigorous training environment that we're looking to see if you're a good fit. And not everybody's a good fit either. We're realizing that too. So I got off my pity train. So we will work with Mr. Walsh to see what we can do. But my commitment to this committee is we will have a 24-hour police response. We already have made some internal changes, and it's going to be painful. And I'm going to tell you that because it pains me when we, our most vulnerable people in our city are elderly or juveniles. And we do have, a high percentage, in my opinion, after 37 years of doing this job, of those crimes.
And that's why I think that's the position I'm worried about, and I think we need to look at the budget in whatever means necessary, I know. And I'm not gonna continue to repeat myself on years past, but. Code enforcement falls actually kind of under both of ours, Brandon, Council Cindy. Yours and mine, it's not only policing, but it's administrative. So it's kind of unique in that way. But we had no code enforcement, and we had our building official who had to enforce some of the really bad complaints and go post it. And that was really tough. But that's, looking at the budget as a whole, we have to look at this collectively, because until we get another street, they generally just.
We got a lot of irons in the fire. We're hoping
They
something
just
comes
ripped
through.
it out from us, right? Cascade Tissue did.
Right.
That's, and again, I hate to be a broken record, but we increased, just so you can stop this rumor. I've been here in budget years, we've increased $3,433,000 to exactly increase. And it was a 2.5 million budget when I started as mayor in 2016. We are not about defund the police. That in no way, shape, or form says defund the police. If you're doing the math, it's 142% increase.
Before we wrap this up, I want to go back to something that you were kind of getting to, which I'm pretty sure when I was the police liaison, Lieutenant Hogue and I have talked about it in the past. So what you're hoping eventually is to get to a point where you can have some type of a staffing process where you're hiring people on, so we don't have this shortage. Can you speak to that real quick?
Yes, so I'll touch back on the time length it takes us to get. So truth be told, we should have been having this conversation 2 years ago. We did. Lieutenant Hogue came in. I'm not throwing it, we have a different council. So you have to overhire. That's just how you maintain the level of service. And what we talk about is we should tomorrow be meeting with Kathy and saying, okay, let's start testing a new process. But that's not as easy as it sounds, because what happens is the number one question that is asked, and we just talked about this morning, is how many are you hiring? When am I going to hire? What's your schedule? And so these individuals aren't specifically testing for St. Helens, they're testing for all the areas. And so we go through this process, and we can, but we have to be able to have the ability to pull the trigger to start getting them into the process. And the worst thing we can do, honestly, is I think what we're doing now is wait until somebody retires and then fill it, because you're already a year behind the power curve. So we have to find money in our budget somehow, at least to overhire. And then when people retire, don't fill those positions. You already filled them, if that makes sense. But because of that delay of a year, that's where we're really getting ourselves into kind of some challenging times. Yeah, I hope I answered your question. So
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So if we were to put something on the ballot to fund, that would be too late, in your opinion, right?
Well, two trains of thought. We're losing 4 officers next year. Okay, we have 7 officers right now. We have 3 officers right now today, as I said, eligible to go. They're here for other, they can just walk out tomorrow. Then we have an additional 4 that are going next year that have told me I'm leaving. Here's my date. I don't want my name out there because it causes a lot of problems, and it does cause a lot of, consternation inside the police department. So my whole point is, yes, it'll be too late, but realistically, when we hit this retirement exodus, the police department can't give our community what we don't have. And you know what I'm saying? So eventually, yes, you'll need those bodies down the road. Again, I know this is kind of a touchy subject, but to 2012, that staffing study came in and said, hey, this is the amount of officers you need. Now, again, the point is, I know people go, oh, we don't need that many officers. I can tell you, yeah, you do. We can have SROs. But I also understand we have a budget, like the mayor says, we don't have a money tree in the back of the city hall. But
Look, the last, I know it's not popular with raise taxes. I know
Right.
It's not, but, and people never believe that if you say it's a 4-year levy, that it's gonna be 4 years, right? It's always that, most people seem to think it's a 4-year. Anyway, I think, at least the way I've been thinking about it, because I want to do as much as I can to support the police. I understand the problem, right? Because of the retirement and everything. I think we need to look at something like that. I don't think, normally I wouldn't consider something like that, but if we don't have the money in the budget and we have to create these positions, I think we need to think.
I can't
The
stress.
cuts or taxes?
Yeah,
That's the way we do
and I
it.
can't stress enough, we need to, excuse me, but we need to be able to look at the finances of the police department, and I wanna make sure that we've looked at everything and we.
Understandable, right.
You know, I mean, does everybody need a vehicle? Can they be shared vehicles, or what, and why? If it were-
They are shared vehicles, so.
But looking at the whole fleet.
Right, understandable.
And examining it, and if that's an eighth of getting an officer within that budget, that's an eighth of work. And that's how we do that, right, those things. It's-
Well, and I'm sure you've
And I think we
seen
work
cost
together.
increase for materials and
But I
stuff.
think-
Gas and materials, right.
We've seen that.
Yeah, I still think we need to continue to visit this, because I don't think it's something that's gonna be solved overnight. I think we're gonna be probably working very closely into the next 3 or 4 months, every month. And getting updates, probably maybe once a month, maybe.
Yeah, I could absolutely come here once a month. I mean,
Just until we get this, our head wrapped around the, what is.
it's a catch 22 because whatever, to your point, Counselor, President, whatever we cut affects our recruiting ability and retention ability.
Nothing different than I asked the county, and
Right.
it was not in support of the levy, because all I wanted was their financials to show where they had increased. Okay, right up here, that's all I was asking for, in the county. We are transparent, we put it out there, and we show you what we've been doing. So that's why I wanna look at the budget. And see where can we maybe find another position in there without the bottom dollar changing. I think it's there. Let's see.
I agree.
Even
It's
if
worth
there's a half-
looking at.
even if there's a half of one there.
Right, it's absolutely, we gotta look at everything. We're beyond the ability to go, okay, we'll look at everything. But there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of contracts involved. Humanitarian part of it too. I mean, as much as we look at the money and the dollars, then you also have to look at what I have to deal with every day. Our officers burned out on this overtime and
Yeah.
putting them in a position, where their family
That's the
life
bottom
is, they're losing their quality of family, it's non-existent. So, but my message again to the community is you have a dedicated group of men and women that continue to show up day in and day out. So, and I apologize, it got a little hot about how, but that's what I see every day. They show up, they sacrifice T-ball games, family barbecues, and then to have a committee get up here because of a process that needs improvement and to slander us, I'm not gonna tolerate that. So.
No problem.
I suggest you tee your ball up for this staffing plan that you have, because we're hoping to bring industry here, so.
Yeah, we're looking forward to
Tee that
that.
ball up.
Right, absolutely. Of course, we could lose like 5 officers for security positions over there, but.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Good,
They're not
Good, I
gonna,
said that.
that's not a joke, because that happens a lot. Where security officers can make fairly decent money and have their credentials.
When I left Vegas, I had a choice to go into private security at a very high corporate
Yes,
salary.
yeah, so that's no joke.
But I said, no, I want to work with Mayor Schultz.
ticket for the trolley thing.
He is good at schmoozing, isn't he? Yeah.
I want to work with Mayor Schultz because he's another OU fan, the only OU or Oklahoma University. Where I graduated from. Sorry.
So but in all seriousness, we need to continue to have these talks with John too, and we are committed to 24-hour policing. We don't know what that looks like, and I don't think we'd ever announce it because that's not what we would do.
The residents won't see, they will not know.
Yes, I don't think that's fair if there was some hybrid, because why would you give a criminal insight to anything? That's just really. That's like the departure of Afghanistan.
That would be like giving a law enforcement operation plan to a security guard. Yeah, we don't. do
Yeah,
that either.
exactly.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, so
Anything else? Well,
hopefully we just get there within the budget.
We'll get there, right.
And find, I'm hoping, fingers crossed. But let's look collectively and keep an open mind. Both sides. Both sides. All right.
Yeah, I would just say that. Understand the need. But you know, it's just a fiscal reality of, you know, the trajectory, we have to be sustainable in our finances. Having industry decline and Cascades leading this as well is just, now our reserves are in jeopardy. I'm just figuring out here over the next couple of years if we don't.
Next couple of years, yes.
Stay the course.
Yeah, the budget is what it is. It's 15%. We want to be at the 20. We're at 15.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Anybody, I can answer. I know I'll be back at 5:30, but I'll close with this in the solar plant. Good luck. We're all counting on you.
Yeah. No, that was pretty encouraging. Yeah. Yeah, so. They're still hanging out. I'm looking out the window there and there's.
I want to recruit some of these officers that are here.
Go say nice things.
So
to them.
that's
Don't
good.
try to get a security
That's
job.
good that they're still here.
Okay.
So.
Thank you, council.
Thank you, team. And thank you, officers, for showing up and we'll probably maybe even see you later too. We happen to have a public hearing at 5:30, so that you might be interested in. So. Okay, yep. So this is great. Yeah, this is good. It's gonna be a very busy day. City appointment to Columbia Learning Center Foundation Board of Directors. So we had Councilor Berkeley there. But we had originally Councilor Berkeley there. When somebody, I mean, Russ is already on a board. With the PUD representing us. I mean, how often do you meet? Yeah, the Columbia Learning Center.
We meet quarterly.
Okay, quarterly. So it's not a huge demand. You know, I could do it if nobody wants to, as long as I got a reminder from you, Susan. Suzanne. On that.
What day is it?
The next meeting, I believe, is next Thursday. It would be, if they did invite me to be on the board. And to whoever that would be doing that, next meeting is Thursday, I think next Thursday in the morning at 9. I can get you all that.
So, you know, I mean, that's where you know, they're tied with the Black Tie Blue Jean event and, you know. Okay, you could?
Are they mostly in the mornings?
That's what, as I understand it.
Good, I guess that'll work. Perfect. I didn't say that.
All right,
It's
well,
connected. Thank you so much.
so would somebody like to just nominate, just to make it official? Mark Anderson?
Nominate Counselor Gunderson.
For tonight,
Tonight
under work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because that's typically what we do.
I wanted my crown then.
Yes. Okay, and then just again, a reminder, that way, 5? 5:30
And 6:45.
and 6:45, and then our regular.
I don't see John's report on here.
So tonight.
Yeah, we moved it. Do you want to give your report?
I was
If
just-
you're not ready, that's fine. I mean,
No, I did want to see if you wanted to talk about the fire board's request and
sure,
else.
let's do that.
And I've served on chamber boards and other boards, but not in a voting capacity before. It's officio, where you show up, you have a communication, you take it back to the council. And I think it's good to have improve our relationship with the fire district. If there's no counselors interested in that, I would do it conditionally upon being non-voting. It's officio.
I'm voting, but.
Well, I
If
think
they
we
don't-
should check with legal counsel on that. Just to be sure.
I've done it in the past.
But I mean, as elected officials, can elected officials do that as a voting member?
My answer would be yes, because Russ can do that.
I would conflict there.
Yeah.
I would be interested.
Okay, well, hey, everybody's interested.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead, Mark. Oh, yeah.
Well,
wasn't that interesting.
so let's further discussion on, you know.
Join two commissions and boards tonight.
There we go. I think we said voting.
It was voting, yes.
Voting and
I wouldn't suggest mine if it was voting.
Yes. Yeah. Department of the city. Okay, all right, so. We got a good, what time are we gonna eat pizza?
it should be here in a few minutes.
Okay, so, yeah, because we thought this would, I thought we'd have more. On here than.
Sorry.
Can you try to prepare? So, yes, pizza will be here in a little bit, but we are adjourned.